Good evening, everyone. We are in chapter 31 of the book of Deuteronomy. And as we continue from chapter 30, you would see that there is a break in the discussion, and it is actually demonstrated in verse 1 right here. It says, "Then Moses went and spoke these words to all Israel." This would be another segment, right? Another segment that is actually given to the children of Israel. And it is not a continuation, but a new trend of thought. I mean, if that's what we could call it in our Bible studies. Now, again, I want to point out to you words as in davar, and in this case, in the plural, davarim. And this is the same word that's used for the 10 Commandments, the same word that is used over and over again, that it doesn't mean literally a word as we know in English, but it means issues, statements, matters, things that God wants to deal with. This is the things that we want to talk about, and that would be words in that sense. Verse 2, and he said to them, remember, here would be all Israel. Now, all Israel is a very important phrase. All Israel, or all Israel in the Hebrew is called Israel, and this would refer to all 12 tribes. And so all Israel essentially is to say that I'm speaking to all of them. And he makes a statement, very interesting. He says, I am 120 years old today. It's like his birthday. And he says, on this day, I can no longer go out and come in. Now, what does that mean? There are a couple of expressions here. No longer able to go out and come in would be literally saying that he is not able to cross the Jordan. He's not leaving this place. It's come upon a time where his work is at an end. That really is the tone that Moses is saying. So he is saying, I'm not able, and the word able is, I guess in terms of ability, that he cannot go and come anymore. Now, as you know, that at this point in time, they are camped on the eastern shore of the Jordan. Their next destination is to cross the Jordan. And so you say that the Lord has said to me, you shall not cross over this Jordan. And you can see here, this would be an A and this would be a B. Essentially, it is with reference to crossing over, leaving this camp, going to the next destination. And there is no next destination for Moses, alas, at this point in time. Now, in verse 3, I would like to highlight to all of us that now we would see a particular Hebrew expression. Now, I call it a Hebrew expression because if you were to read this literally, it carries a different meaning than how the Hebrew expression wants to tell us. You read this, the Lord Jehovah. So Jehovah, your Elohim, himself. So this is an emphasis. Every time they use the word himself, right? Crosses over before you. And if you take it literally, it says that God will walk ahead of you. He will cross the river Jordan in front of you. That's what it means by before you, right? Before you means to your face. And so it doesn't literally mean that God is going to walk across the Jordan River. What it does mean is that God will be with them and he will send somebody in front of them. So he will destroy these nations from before you, and you shall dispossess them. The question we always need to ask ourselves is, when they went across the River Jordan, did they need to do anything to dispossess the nations? Yes, they have to fight the war. But then didn't God say he's going to cross over and destroy these nations before you? And the answer is yes. Now, we've seen this in Deuteronomy Chapter 3, when they went ahead, and God says he is going ahead and he will destroy the Amorites. And what did they do? They went into the war and they were against people who were stronger, bigger, better at war in fortified cities, and yet they won the war. And what does that mean? It means that God had gone before them. And that is an expression that when they win the battle, though they may appear weaker than the nations before them, though they may not be as smart as them, though they may not have as much experience as them, though they may be bigger and taller than them, though they may be living in cities which are fortified and cannot be overcome, and yet they do, it is an expression that God has crossed before them and God has destroyed these nations. Now, that is the kind of picture that I want us to understand, that the Hebrew people, whenever they do something and they are successful or otherwise, attributes to God. And so God now tells them, I'm going to do this for you. And so what does God say after this? Joshua himself crosses over before you, just as the Lord has said. And the Lord will do to them as he did to Sihon and Og, the kings of the Amorites, and their land, when he destroyed them. And what did they do? Actually, it was the Israelites that fought the war, but they won a battle that could not have been done solely by them. And so the Lord will give them over to you, that you may do according to every command which I have commanded you. And so what you have seen is, this would be an A, and this will be a B, as you can tell, right? God is going ahead of you. Joshua is going ahead of you. And so you find that Joshua is the representative of God, not Moses anymore, because Moses says, I can no longer do anymore. And so Joshua would be the one who will go before you. And literally, that's what God means. When he said in Exodus chapter 12 that he will go ahead of you and lead you out of Egypt. But actually, it was the angel of the Lord that goes ahead, and with the pillar of fire and the pillar of cloud representing God. God says he will pass over Egypt and all the firstborn will die. And in Exodus chapter 12, eventually the destroyer represents God and destroy all the firstborn. And so you would see that God says it, and in place of the action, God sends a delegate. And the delegate actually carries the full authority of God. And that is something which we need to understand in the Hebrew context of expression. So God will cross, Joshua will cross. All right. And how will so God will destroy these nations? Then the Lord will do to them as they did, and so you may do exactly. And so they are the ones who are going to win the battle, but ascribe to God, because God enables them to win over enemies who are greater, bigger, taller, stronger, and smarter than them. And so Moses says, be strong and of good courage. Do not fear nor be afraid of them. Now, why would the Israelites be afraid of them? You just remember what I said. The nations like the Amorites are bigger, stronger, larger in number, taller, in fortified cities, smarter. Why wouldn't Israel be afraid? If you look at it purely from a human viewpoint, they are concerned, obviously. Now, the idea here of be strong, hardened, be hardened, or be resolute. That is what be strong means. They are not going to be strong in muscles, but they have to be strong in their determination. So being resolute, harden up yourself in that sense, right? The second word to be strong is actually be courageous, be alert, be courageous. It also has the idea of being determined. And so you would see another A and B right here. So be strong and of good courage is actually talking about the same thing. Have a firm heart. Be courageous in the sense of being very determined to push ahead. And the next one says, do not fear. Do not be afraid. So fear means afraid. And then the next word in English seems to be afraid. And how is it that it says, do not be afraid nor be afraid? Well, this second word right here actually means be trembling. This is another word of being afraid, but in this case, being feeling dreadful, shaking, right? And again, you would find that there is an A and B. So we need to be mindful that this is very much a very Hebrew way of expressing. It is not English at all, and our English words are not adequate to see the nuance here. Now, why did God say, harden your heart and be determined? And then do not be afraid, do not tremble about them. Even though you look at them, there is no reason for you to be afraid. Now, I guess we need to understand when God used the word yare, it means to fear God, but never to fear men. Why? Because when God is with them, there is nothing to fear. And the only one they need to fear is God, because he is a consuming fire. We've read that many times in the book of Deuteronomy. For Jehovah, your God, he is the one. It says here, he is the one who goes with you. Now, the word goes with you means what? He is the one who walks with you, right? He is the one who walks with you. Now, the word one is not there. The reason why is that this is not there. This is supplied by the translators. He goes with you, or he walks with you. He is, well, maybe you can say that. Okay, let me just put here. He is, he is the one. Okay, I think the it is implied, right? He is implied The word that is in the Hebrew is the. Okay. Let me just remove this. The word in Hebrew is the. He is the. So the word one is not there, but it is implied. It is implied. He is the who goes with you. He is the, he goes with you. This whole phrase refers to God. He goes with you. He is the one who goes with you. So in English, we would have to insert the one in there. Now we see another phrase which we are familiar with, but I want to point out to you that that is not exactly how the Hebrew expresses it. So he will not leave you nor forsake you. Let's break this down and let's understand this. He will not leave you. The word leave you is abandon. It means let alone. And you must understand, it is about God. God is not about to abandon them. Now, the second word is about the same meaning. And this one is, it comes from Psalms chapter, I would say Psalms, where is it? Psalms chapter 20. Let's see. We have this in Psalms chapter, I need to give you this, I kind of slipped my mind right here. Psalms chapter 37 and equivalent. It comes from the phrase, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And this is the same word, forsaken, right? This is actually the same word. Okay. It is Psalms 22 and in verse 1. And this word we should be familiar. And the idea of this is to leave behind. And here immediately you would find that we have an A and a B, because it says the same concept. It's an emphasis that he will not abandon you or leave you alone or leave you behind. And so just remember that the expressions we've seen all the time in the prophet books, and in Psalms, and now in Deuteronomy, there is always saying the same thing twice, 3 times, 4 times for the sake of emphasis. It's a style. So in English, we tend to think, well, leave you and forsake you may be 2 different words in English, but in the Hebrew, it actually talks about the same thing, but using different words. Now, what I wanted to point out to you is that this phrase, he will not leave you nor forsake you, is about he. And this is a conditional. Now, I know that many of us, when we read Psalms and we read phrases like this, like, oh, God will never leave us nor forsake us. Now, this is a phrase that is used upon the Israelites. And within this chapter, I will show you later how God means by this phrase. So let's park it aside and just put it at the back of your mind that this is a conditional phrase. Now, as Moses has declared that he is no longer able to go here and there, Moses called Joshua. Now, you need to know that the name Joshua is Yehoshua. That is the full name for Joshua. The shortened form for Joshua is Yeshua. And if you have done any studies in the names, you find that Joshua literally means that Jehovah will save, right? Jehovah will deliver. And so in this case, Jehovah will bring you across the river. Jehovah will give you the land. Jehovah will help you possess the land. And hence you find that it is interesting because when God says Jehovah, your Elohim will go before you, and then he sends Joshua, Yehoshua, to go before you, you would find that this is a very uncanny way of literally saying, well, Jehovah is before you. Yehoshua, that's his name. And literally the people will see Joshua, and Joshua will represent Jehovah to go before them and to fulfill exactly what God has said. And said to him, in the sight of all Israel. Now, again, I want to point out to you the culture, right? The culture here. This is the eyes of all Israel. Again, all Israel, 12 tribes. I hope that you get the picture of the expression, the Hebrew expressions here in chapter 31. To confirm Joshua, it has to be before everyone. There cannot be any secret anointment or secret appointment, or you go to the tabernacle and suddenly Moses shows up and say, God says this. So Moses presents Joshua in front of everyone. And he says, be strong and of good courage. Again, remember what be strong is, right? Be strong is be determined, or what you say, be hardened, be resolute, right? Be resolute. And then be of good courage, be determined. And again, this is an A and a B. For you must go with this people. You would be Joshua. You must go with them, all Israel, to the land which the Lord has sworn to their fathers to give them. Who is the fathers? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And you shall cause them to inherit it, to possess it, to take possession, which means that whatever happens on the eastern shore of the Jordan, Moses have completed his duty and caused them to inherit the land of the Amorites. And it was parceled out, remember, in Deuteronomy Chapter 3, it was a reminder to Manasseh, to Reuben, and to Gad. And then Jehovah says, he, again, we say here, goes before you. This is talking to about the person, this one here. He, the going before you. And basically, it tells us that God is the one that is going ahead. And again, we see it is Joshua who is doing that. And so God going before is not God literally going before, but God delegating, God sending, God empowering, and Joshua represents the intents of God. He will be with you. He will not leave you nor forsake you. do not fear nor be dismayed. Now, dismay is a new word here. And the idea of dismay literally means to be terrified, to be paralyzed. Fear is to be afraid. And so God will not leave you nor forsake you. So do not be afraid and be paralyzed of fear, basically, which means that you have another A and B here. And you have another A and B here. So remember, when God says he will not leave you nor forsake you, it is very much saying the same thing that he says he will not abandon you. And then the second one is Adzaf. The whole idea here is to, I guess we can say, let alone. Let you be alone. Okay. Now, again, let me just highlight this to you. When God says he will be with you, he will not leave you or forsake you, is an expression that is all built around God, right? He is the one who will not do that. And I've already mentioned to you that this is conditional. Now, in verse 9, in this particular segment, you would find that Moses is now described as one who is writing down this Torah. He is no longer giving any more commands, but he is writing it down. And so even in this one phrase, there is a period of time that would have passed. He would have written it in some form of a parchment or skin and put into scrolls. And he gave it. And this word delivered is to give. He gave it to the priests. Who are the priests? The sons of Levi, right? The sons of Levi, who they carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and to all the elders of Israel. The idea of giving here is an idea of committing. Means that this is the law of God. These are the instructions of God. It is now in a scroll form. And here you are. The sons of Levi are the ones who would keep it, guard it, teach it. And the elders of Israel will be the ones who are delegated the authority. And this is what they are supposed to do. He says, Moses commanded them, saying, at the end of every 7 years, remember 7 years is the Shabbat year. And in the book of Leviticus, there are a lot of things that happens in the Shabbat year. The whole idea of the 7 years speaks a lot about, how would you say, in the book of Leviticus, you would see a lot of these coming out. I think you could see that in Leviticus chapter 23. Leviticus chapter 23 itself speaks a lot about this. Right? If you have a chance, go back and read Leviticus 23. And there is an appointed time of the year of release. And every time there is a year of release, the year of release in this sense, how would you say? The year of letting go, right? The idea of letting go, the idea of, I I guess you would say, release of debts, which we would have seen in Deuteronomy 15. At the Feast of Tabernacles, at a appointed time, and an appointed time would be very, very specific to, how would you say, it's God's appointment, all right? It's God's appointment that at the end of this, and the idea of appointment, which is moed, is a very specific time that God has instructed. Now, we may not think very much about time of appointment. And you would see that God put in day 4 the sun, moon, and stars in the sky for the purpose where the children of Israel is able to tell time, so that at a very specific point in time of the day, of the month, of the year, that they would gather at the tabernacle and then do certain things that God has said. And all of these are documented in the Torah. An appointment means you have to come. It is a sacred time. Just like, I guess today, if you have an appointment with the king, would you not keep that appointment? Obviously. And so this is an appointment with God. And should the children of Israel forget it? They obviously should not, because it is a divine appointment. And so these words may not mean much to us, but it means a lot in the Torah, in the book of Deuteronomy, that impresses upon the children of Israel. When all Israel comes to appear before the Lord your God in the place which he chooses, and that would be in Shiloh, and that would be the time of Joshua, and then eventually in Jerusalem. And you shall read this law before all Israel in their hearing. All of these are very vivid actions. Hebrew is a very action-oriented word. So this word to read, you'd be surprised that this is the same word as call, right? To call, to proclaim, to say something out loud. And so this idea of reading is not reading to yourself, but reading aloud. That is the intent, aloud. And it should be to the faces, right? To the faces. In verse 11, it says, to before all Israel, and the word before here is in front of all the 12 tribes. And the word in their hearing means in their ear. And you find that all of these are very concrete, actionable instructions. Even a child will understand that you will read aloud this Torah in front of all the 12 tribes of Israel, within their hearing, in their ears, so that when you speak, they can hear you and literally hear. And you shall assemble the people together, men, women, little children, the stranger. And the word stranger is ger, and this is a very important word. Ger is one who really follows the Israelites, but he is not a native. He joins them and he lives with them. And so God says this is not only for the men, the women, the children, including the non-native who agrees. And this stranger would be someone like Ruth, right? From Moab, from a Moabite, right? And joins Naomi, and that would be a ger. And so everyone, including the ger, will sit and hear And just not hear, that they may learn. And the word learn here is lamad, right? It's lamad, and this is the simple form. The intensive form is to teach. And so this is to learn, right? To learn what? See, it's not just to hear the sounds, right? Learn to fear the Lord your God and carefully observe all the words of this law. Carefully observe means to guard and to do or to perform. Now, let me show you an A and a B right here. You hear all the law being read. The purpose is to learn. And we are learning as well. You know, as you hear me speak and you read all these words, we are all learning. And our purpose of studying the book of Deuteronomy as well, or the Old Testament, and learning the Hebrew is really to be afraid of God. They are not to be afraid of the nations, but they are to be afraid of God. Jehovah, your Elohim. Why? Because Jehovah, your Elohim, is a consuming fire. He will judge you if you do wrong. And so you need to be afraid so that when you make a decision, every decision is to love God. Every decision is to serve God. And so be afraid means to be very careful, to do all the words of this Torah. And so you can see this is an A and this is a B. That to fear God literally is to do things which God has instructed so that we do not deviate from what he wants. So understand that fear God is not about just the word afraid of God. Fear God leads one to make very sure, very guarded, very careful to make decisions so that it complies with the word of God. And that their children who have not known it, they may hear and learn also to fear the Lord your God for as long as you live in the land when you cross over to the Jordan to possess it. And so to guard is also to protect it, to pass it down to the next generation so that they can also learn to fear God. You see, all of these are put together. It's not for Bible study. The Bible is not put together to learn the Hebrew. The Bible is not put together to sing some songs. The end objective of any study of our class, of learning the Hebrew, underlying Hebrew to understand all this, really is shaped to learn to fear the Lord. That's what we want to do, right? Fear the Lord. Observe all the words of this Torah. And to know God, to love him, to walk before him, to serve him, and to fear him, all of this wrapped up together is about our relationship with God. Now comes our final segment, which I wanted to show you that when God says, I will not forsake you nor leave you, is conditional. So verse 14 onwards shows us some very interesting elements. The Lord said to Moses, behold, the days are coming when you must die. Right? Now, it's not God causing Moses to die. We need to understand this. It is God saying you are old. It is time that you are nearing your end. So the word die in verse 14 literally says that it is a point of time of an end. That is what it means. Time of end. That's what it means by die. And so call Joshua, present yourselves, and I may inaugurate him. Right? It's like an inauguration of the prime minister. But in this case, it literally means that God wants him to stand in the tent of appointment, and then to tell them to stand before God, right? Present here is to stand before God, and that God is wanting to, well, I guess you could say, meeting, appointment, but how should we say? Let me see. The phrase here, the phrase here literally means to charge him. How do I say? To commission him, right? Okay, to commission him. There is this interesting practice that we are seeing here, that there is a change of guard, right? A change of leadership. And this is done by God. Moses is being switched out, Joshua is being switched in. And so they are doing it in the tabernacle of meeting, and this is the formalization before God. So there is a one before man that everybody can see, and there's another one before God. And now God appeared. Now this is very interesting. In verse 15, the idea of appear literally is cause to see or cause to perceive. That somehow supernaturally we find that Moses and Joshua were able to perceive God in a pillar of cloud above the door of the tabernacle. And it speaks about this very intimate meeting. Now, in this intimate meeting, from verse 16, it says, the Lord said to Moses, behold, you will rest with your fathers. This is a very nice way of saying that you will die, right? You will, the word rest literally means you are going to lie down. So your fathers have lied down and you will lie down. And this people will rise up, right? Will rise up. And then the idea of rise up in this case, literally to stand up. And this is the contrast. The contrast is you lie down, they will rise up. You need to understand that this would be the opposite of each other, right? And this is an A and an A prime. And what is this opposite? While you lie down, right? When you lie down, the people will rise up. And they will play the harlot with the gods of the foreigners of the land. And they will go to be among them, and they will forsake me and break my covenant which I made with them. And let's quickly unpack this. Play the harlot. Now understand that this word play the harlot is to commit adultery. And in this way, I think we would be able to say that committing adultery is Israel being the wife of God, being one of a people who is owned of God or possessed. And so God calls them my possession, my nation, my holy nation. And then she goes after the gods. Now understand the word gods here is Elohim. And in Hebrew, Elohim is just the mighty ones. And so in this context, this will be the idols of the foreigners. And the word foreigners is not ger. These are the, what do you call, the strange people, the strangers, right? The aliens who are in the land, alien to Israel. in the land. These will be your Canaanites, your Philistines, the Jebusites, the Amorites, and so on and so forth. And then they will go after them. They will go to be there in their midst, right? In their midst. And then they will do this. This is what they do. They will abandon God, and then they will break. Now notice this word break. Break is to step on. The word break is to step on. It comes from the word para. Para means it's like the ox when they step on the wheat to break the husk. This is exactly what it says. It is a very visual action that they will take the covenant of God, put it on the ground and step on it. And this is what it means by break my covenant that God has made with them, which means that this relationship seems to be very cheap. You can just step on it, and by stepping on it is the vivid imagery of how they would treat God's relationship. And so they will forsake. They will abandon. And then my anger, you notice this is all conditional. God's anger will be aroused against them. And note this, and I will forsake them, and I will hide my face from them, and they shall be devoured. What does that mean? God says, if that's the case, I will abandon them. And I will hide my face. And the idea of hide my face is to cause my face to be concealed, my presence to be concealed. That you can't find God anymore. You need to understand, when God is angry with whatever they have done, and what have they done that God keeps telling them not to do? Idolatry. And so God will hide his face or conceal his face. And then they will be devoured. They will be eaten. Literally eaten. And that will be the imagery words. And many evil, this will be your ra. And troubles. Troubles literally means affliction. And this would be an A and a B. It's the same thing. So evil is not moral evil. It shall be come upon them, and they will say in that day, have not these evils come upon us because our God is not among us? And they will ask themselves, these will happen only when God is not with them. And because they are not with them, why? Because they are where? They are with the foreigners and their gods. And so how can God be with them when they are with the foreign gods? And so God says, I will surely conceal my face that day because of all the evil which they have done. Evil here would be Ra, the things which God disagrees with, and they have done it, not thought about it, performed. So God judges them for what they have done, that they have turned to other gods. This is why God is angry with them always. So turn to other gods is the idea of, how would you say, you are turning towards. If you turn towards other Elohim, it means that you are leaving Jehovah, your Elohim. So we have Jehovah here, and then we have other gods. And so what are they doing is this. They are moving there, which means that they are going away. And so if they go away, how can Jehovah be in the midst of them? Because the Israelites will be in the midst of other gods, and God says, you shall not have any other Elohim before me. And that is what I wanted to point out to you, that when God says, I will not leave you nor forsake you, it is God's call, God's choosing about himself. He by himself will not do that. But because God is just, God cannot be with other gods when the Israelites go and play the harlot, commit adultery, take on another husband. And that is why God says, if that's the case, my anger will be against you and I will surely abandon you. I don't want even to talk to you. And so that is what I wanted to highlight to everyone, that the idea of God will not leave you nor abandon you is conditional. So let me just quickly wrap this up. Verse 19. Therefore, write down this song for yourself. The song is literally a song, so that they can put in their mouths, they can sing it. The song will be a witness for me against the children of Israel. And so, interestingly, the song is a song of warning. So when they sing the song, they should remind themselves, don't do that, don't do that. And if it happens, well, God has said it. And so when I have brought them to the land flowing with milk and honey, that I swore to their fathers, they have eaten, filled themselves, grown fat. And then what they do is they turn to other gods and serve them, and they will cause God to be angry and step on my covenant. Then it shall be many evils and troubles upon them. And this is a song. Just as what God has said, Moses is writing this song. This song will witness, remind, testify that God has said so, and that it will not be forgotten in the mouth, so they can keep singing this song, that I know the inclination of their behavior today. They are a stubborn people, stiff-necked. So God says, circumcise the skin of your hearts. And that even before I brought them into the land, they tend to have that kind of a behavior. And so in verse 22, it says, therefore, Moses wrote the song. It's to be sung, taught it to the children of Israel. He commissioned Joshua, the son of Nun. Now, that's another word play here. Nun means continuity. So that Joshua or Yehoshua is God in front of them, Jehovah before them. Nun is a replacement, a continuation of the leadership of Moses. Be hardened in your heart, be resolute, be determined, and you, Joshua, will bring the children of Israel into the land which God, Jehovah, has sworn to them, and Jehovah will be with you. And so Moses completed writing this law, and they were finished. And when they were finished, given to the Levites, put it into the Ark of the Covenant, and says, take the Sefer or the scroll of the Torah. This is the end. It's all done. Put it beside the Ark of the Covenant, that it may be a testimony against you. What does it mean? It means that when you do something wrong, God's judgment is there, and the mercy seat will be the one to invoke judgment. For I know your rebellion. Now in verse 27, the word rebellion here is very much mara. Like at the time where the water was bitter, Exodus 17. Your stiff-neck, stubbornness, right? Being stubborn. This is their character. Stiff-neck, or like in the Chinese word, ngang gang. And so today, while I, Moses, am yet alive with you, you have already been mara against the Lord. How much more after my end? So verse 28 is what I want to quickly wrap up. Moses says, "Come, gather all the elders of your tribes, your officers, that I may speak these words in their hearing and call heaven and earth to witness against them." Another commission, Shamaim Aretz, and only to the elders, the leadership. And this is a delegation of authority and warning that I know that after my end, you will become utterly corrupt. The word corrupt here is, let's see, in verse 29, that you will utterly be corrupt. And the word corrupt here is to go to ruin, that you will decay. And the idea of decay means, from a moral standpoint, from an obedience standpoint, will change from obedience to disobedience. And you will turn aside from the way which I have commanded you. So the way here is the way of God, the Torah, the direction. And you would leave. And so these are all warnings. And evil, Ra, will befall you, will come upon you. But not now, in the latter days. Now, the word latter days literally means in the days of the end, of the period where you have left God, and suddenly bad things is going to happen because you will do evil in the sight of Lord. Now, again, evil is always in the eyes of the beholder. And so in this case, evil or something that is wrong, that God has seen, this is idolatry. You will make him angry through what you do with your hands. And this is the doing part. Every time you see the word works of your hands, they are actually doing it. God doesn't judge when they think about it. God judges them because they actually do it, and then leads God to anger. And God says, I will abandon you because you have abandoned me. You stay in the middle of the gods, the foreign gods. How can I be in your midst? Then you admit Jehovah to be in the midst of the foreign gods, which is utterly unheard of. And with this, I hope that all of us will be clear that God is a conditional God. On his own, he will not abandon them. But in response to their not fearing God, their departure from God, God will abandon them and then will conceal his face from them. And with this, we end chapter 31.